A very good day to all of you. I'm Dr. Shankar and I will be presenting to you my topic on a surgeon's guide, authorship, journal selection, and formatting your article. Today's session is designed to guide you through three critical components of academic publishing, which are namely authorship, selecting the right journal, and also ensuring your manuscript is formatted correctly for that particular journal. As future surgeons who may be interested in research, these elements are vital for not only sharing your work with the scientific community, but also building your academic credibility and visibility. Understanding authorship and the ethical responsibilities will help you navigate collaborative research effectively. Selecting an appropriate journal will then ensure that your research reaches the right audience, while proper formatting makes the peer review process smoother. These topics may seem very technical, but mastering them will make the process of publishing your research much more efficient and rewarding. Now let's take a look at these areas with practical strategies and clear steps that you can somewhat apply when preparing your manuscripts. Before we dive into the main topics of today's session, let me outline the practical learning objectives that will guide our discussion. By the end of this talk, I hope you will be able to understand the criteria for authorship, including the roles of the first author, corresponding author, and some ethical considerations. And you would also have some idea on how to select the right journal for your research by evaluating factors like the scope of the journal, the impact factor, and also the target audience. Okay, and also be able to evaluate the pros and cons of open access versus subscription-based journals. You will also then be introduced to the topic of formatting an article for journal submission, including how to structure your manuscript using the IMRAD format. IMRAD stands for Introduction, Methods, Results, and Discussion. That's the format. That's the acronym for the usual formatting methods that we use in writing an article. You would also learn how to develop a practical approach for submitting manuscripts and navigating the peer review process. And I hope at the end of my presentation today, I'll give you some ideas on how to recognize the warning signs of predatory journals and learn some strategies to avoid them. Firstly, let's go into authorship. What is authorship? Authorship is more than having your name on a paper, on an article. It signifies the recognition of the intellectual contribution to the work of the particular person. It's also tied to the ethical responsibility that authors carry for the accuracy and integrity of the research being published. As as all of you are future researchers and clinicians, it's crucial to understand how authorship impacts your reputation, because your name is there on the paper, so it will impact your reputation if anything goes wrong with the paper, and your accountability within the scientific community. Okay, just let me give you all a heads up, yeah. So throughout this presentation, for the ease of discussion, I will use some of the articles published under my group, okay, so that it is easier for discussion. So now let's look at this article with all the authors' names shown. Notice my name there, okay? S. Kupusamy is my name with my affiliation, Department of Surgery, University of Malaya. Okay, and just think about the title of this paper, have a look at it, and think about what I would have contributed to this purely basic science paper, and me being a clinician and all. So how would I have contributed to this paper? So, the thought will be whether the group of authors that I worked with have given me a gift authorship, just put my name there out of respect as HOD. Okay, so that is one possible way to think about it. So to answer your question, and for me to be listed as an author in that previous paper, so I must have contributed significantly, to the conception or design of the work, or maybe to the acquisition of data. Maybe I would have contributed on the analysis or interpretation of the data. Additionally, maybe I would have been involved in the drafting or critically revising the manuscript that was drafted by the first author, and also have taken part in the approval of the final version. So there must be some form of involvement that would give you the fulfillment of the criteria for authorship. Finally, all of the authors there must also agree to be accountable for all aspects of the work. So this ensures that every author has both contributed to and takes responsibility for the research. And it is always advisable to clearly agree on the roles right from the beginning of the research project. For example, if you look at this article, you see how this article actually documents, at the end of the paper, the contribution of each author in the last paragraph. You can see the boxed paragraph, and as this was required by the journal that we submitted our manuscript. It actually shows who contributed to data acquisition, manuscript writing, draft, analysis and all that lah. So it has to be stated clearly who contributed in doing what. When we talk about authorship order, it is often an indication of the level of contribution. Okay, so the first author is typically the one who has done the majority of the work, such as performing an experiment or writing the manuscript, preparing the first draft, and all that. The corresponding author is usually responsible for communicating with the journal and also handling of revisions. The last author, who is usually the principal investigator or senior scientist who oversaw the project. And sometimes the last author is usually also the corresponding author. Okay, and this hierarchical structure is important because it can influence how credit is distributed within the team. Okay, how you give credit to each of the author is all depending on this order of authorship. As we know, most of the time, the first author and the corresponding author are the ones getting the most credit for an article. Now, let's have a look at one of our published articles showing myself as the last author because I was the principal investigator and also the corresponding author. My student, Rebecca, who did the lab experiments and drafted the manuscript, is credited as the first author, rightly so, isn't it? She did most of the work. And disputes over authorship can occur when contributions are not clearly defined. Okay, it is always vital. We must establish very early in the project on who will be included as an author and in what order. So we must document all the contribution throughout the research process so that we can prevent any disagreement later. Okay, so open communication within the team must be ensured. You must communicate, especially when it comes to setting expectations. Okay, it is the best way to avoid this issue because your name being present in one of these articles is so important to be used for promotion purpose and all that. So everybody wants, if they have contributed, they must have their names inside. So we mustn't have any conflict with that regard. Next is the affiliation of the authors. Accurate author affiliation is an essential part of any research article. For each author, you need to list their full affiliation, including their department and institution. This ensures transparency and allows others to verify the source of the research. The corresponding author's affiliation is especially important as they serve as the main point of contact for the journal and readers post-publication. Always use a professional email tied to the institution for the corresponding author. For authors with multiple affiliation, it is crucial to list all relevant institutions to give proper credit. Affiliation accuracy also plays a role in how the research is perceived. Papers from certain prestigious institutions might receive more attention. You won't believe that. It does have weight where the paper originates from. If you look at this paper again, you will notice that there are two numbers in two superscripted numbers against my name. That is Faculty of Medicine and also UMMC as my separate affiliations. This is especially important, because for example, if you go over to UK and let's say you work in an institution and you are lucky enough that a paper is published in the institution that you are working. So you must convince your team to include UM or UMMC as one of your affiliations on top of the affiliation of the institute that you are working in. If they forget to do so, or you forget to do so, then UM will not be credited, and you also can't use that as one paper to be considered for promotion later. So you have to be very diligent in this aspect. There are ethical issues to be aware of when it comes to authorship. Gift or honorary authorship occurs when someone is included as an author despite not contributing significantly, often due to their seniority or influence. Like you just put your HOD's name or your supervisor's name, although they did not contribute anything to the paper, just out of respect. And there's another component which is called the ghost authorship, on the other hand, which when significant contributors, are accidentally or intentionally left out of the author list. So both practices are unethical and they undermine the integrity of the publication process. So it is essential to be transparent about who deserves to be an author and who does not, so that you can avoid the disputes that I mentioned earlier. Especially disputes happen when there's no agreement or there's miscommunication, and then there's no established guidelines to handle the disputes. And also, like I said, all authorships must be agreed early before you start your research project. So now what about acknowledgement? Acknowledgement is very different from authorship. Acknowledging is when someone deserves to be mentioned as having contributed to the research but does not meet the criteria for authorship. It can be in the form of technical assistance, your research assistant who actually helped with data collection, and also can be a form of showing gratitude to the source of funding. Like if you had a grant for this research that you did, you can actually acknowledge the grant in your article. To give all of you an idea on how we acknowledge either a grant or an individual, please notice the paper on the left where we are actually acknowledging the FRGS grant that funded our project. And the paper on the right, we mentioned the name of our research assistant and the daycare nurses who actually helped with data collection and also the logistics of patients coming for ESWL in that paper that we published. With that, I have covered authorship as one of my first topics for today. And some key takeaway points that I would like to highlight is that the authorship is a significant recognition of contribution and accountability in research. Accurate affiliation and contact details are very important, and we must always have clear guidelines and nothing can beat communication, which are very essential to avoid any disputes. And always ethical authorship practices are crucial for maintaining research integrity. Next, I move on to journal selection. Selecting the right journal is always critical for ensuring that your research reaches the targeted audience, and it gets the recognition that it deserves, and also contribute to the field that you are working in, you know. So a well-matched journal increases the chances of acceptance, and it also ensures that there's better engagement with your work. So that's why you must select your journal appropriately. There are several important factors to consider when choosing a journal for your manuscript, and let's have a look at it one by one. The first factor is usually the evaluation of the journal's scope. Each journal has a specific scope or range of topics that it covers. Okay, so submitting your manuscript to a journal outside its scopes can result in desk rejection. What does that mean? When the editor receives your submission, if it doesn't fit their journal, then they will just reject it on the spot. So it's a wasted effort. So always review the journal's aims and scope section to ensure your research fits well. And how do you do that? The way to do it is choose a journal. For example, here I have chosen a World Journal of Surgery. And if you go to the overview section on their web page, the aims and scopes will be given on their web page. And they would have written here what are their area of interest that they would like to publish. For example, you know, it's written here, WJS is a key platform for showcasing innovative research in clinical surgery. WJS advances knowledge and global patient care through publication on clinical trials, health services, and outcome research, surgical education, and so on. You know, so you need to make sure your manuscript that you have prepared matches the journal's aims and scope. The next factor that we must take into consideration is the journal metrics, such as impact factor. So this impact factor provides an indication of a journal's influence in the field of your specialty. Okay. Now, other useful metrics may include the citation score, which indicates the visibility of the articles that appear in the journal. Okay, and as we all know, any journal with higher impact factor, they always tend to have stricter acceptance criteria. So it is important to see where your research fits, you know, when you are submitting to any journal. Moving on to the next factor in journal selection, we have to take into consideration whether to publish in an open access journal or a subscription based journal. Open access journal makes articles freely available to all readers. So you go and search it, you will get the article on the internet, and you can freely read it. So therefore, the visibility is increased. But for this, you often require an article processing fee, which can be quite expensive sometimes. On the other hand, there are subscription journals which restrict access to only subscribers, like institutions. You know, you must go through institution, or if you are subscribing to that particular journal. But it may have a higher perceived reputation in some fields, you know, if you go through subscription-based journals. Moving on to the peer review process of the journal that you are intending to submit to. Okay, so this is the key to the credibility of your research. And although this process is beyond your control, but you have to actually have a look at it so that you can anticipate the processes that takes place in reviewing your article. So most journals use one of the three types of peer review. It can be single blind, where the reviewers will know the author, but the author does not know who reviewed your article. Double blind, both reviewers and authors are anonymous, or open review, where both parties are aware of each other's identities. Okay, the choice depends on your preference for transparency or anonymity. Okay, some journals also ask for you to suggest the names of the reviewers during the submission process. So it is best, you know, in my opinion, it is best to take the opportunity and name them. Okay, this way you can actually choose some prominent names from your list of references for your article. And because these reviewers, if you name them and they get your article sent to them, they might be interested to get your paper published, and they may be a little bit more friendlier because if this article gets published, then it will be good for them as they will be cited as one of the literature that was used to come up with your manuscript, isn't it? So it is advantageous to them. The next point that I would like to highlight is the that it is always very good to know the review speed and publication speed. So because if they keep your paper for too long, you can't actually submit anywhere else. So you just have to wait for the outcome. So always look for journals that have acceptable turnaround time. Even if the outcome is rejection, we have to accept it. And if they give any comments, we should address all the comments so that the next round of submission may improve the paper and may actually give better chance of acceptance. So now I have explained several factors to help you in choosing the journal that is right for your manuscript. So how do you go about choosing them? So luckily, we have several tools that are available to help you choose the right journal for your research. I mean, you have Elsevier Journal Finder, Springer Journal Suggester, Simago Journal Rank, and all that. But for me, most of the time, I tend to use the Elsevier Journal Finder, which I will explain to you in the next slide. As I mentioned to you and also shown here, the Elsevier Journal Finder is quite friendly, and all you have to do is go to the website and just paste your abstract in the Find the Journal section at the top, and it will give you a whole lot of suggested journal. In this case, I have actually pasted my abstract, and you get about 26 of them suggested by Elsevier, and you will get all the details of the uh, factors that I mentioned earlier. So you see, you get the journal name, which is urology, then you get the impact factor, which is 2.1, site score 3.3. Site score means the average number of times the articles in that journal gets cited, and then time to first decision, that means the desk decision is always quite fast, about 7 days, and then time to acceptance is about 76 days. But very importantly, you must look at the acceptance rate. Only 26% of the articles submitted to this journal gets accepted, so the acceptance rate is quite low. Okay, so must be a little careful when we submit to this journal, but it's okay. The first decision is always 7 days, so it's fine. And you must remember, here is given here the open access and subscription based policies of the journal, where you can see the payment for open access is about 3,000 plus US dollars. That's a cool 12,000 ringgit to be paid. So it's not cheap to get open access, but of course you get good visibility lah if you manage to get the funds. Okay, so most of the information is there in this website. You can also go to the Journal Citation Report, JCR, under the Web of Science site to search for details about the journal. So when you can just key in the journals that you are interested in, and it just gives you the impact factor, the ratings, whether it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, So then you can also make your decision on which journal that you would like to submit your paper to. Now, very importantly, when you're looking for journals, please be mindful of the existence of predatory journals out there. Yeah. So I will touch a little on that in the last part of my presentation, so that just to give you some idea on what predatory journals are all about, and how best to find out which journal is predatory and avoid them in your process of publishing your research article. So before I move to the topic of predatory journals, so my next topic in my presentation today is the formatting of an article. So if you're planning to write an article or have written an article, you must make sure they are in the proper format for submission. Okay. So what is the importance of formatting then? So proper formatting ensures, okay, that your manuscript adheres to the journal's guidelines, which can then help you increase your chances of getting your submission or your article accepted by that journal. Okay, it also demonstrates your professionalism and your attention to detail. Okay, and this, if you do it right, it makes it easier for the editors and reviewers to evaluate your work that you have submitted. So that's very important. Okay, because sometimes just by non-adherence, your paper will just get rejected. Won't go beyond the first editor that sees your paper. So it's just, like a waste of your effort. So how do you know what is the right format in order to submit to a particular journal that you have selected? So each journal has a detailed set of author guidelines. So they will outline the formatting requirements. Okay, clearly they will outline. So these guidelines will usually cover the manuscript length, like number of words, the section headers, what font type to use, what kind of spacing, even the reference style will be stated in their guideline. And if you fail to comply with any of these rules, it will usually lead to a rejection without even a review. So again, I would like to stress to all of you, please stick to these guidelines so that we don't, our effort doesn't go to waste. So how do you find out the author guidelines? So in this slide, I have tried to explain how, in a brief way, to get the actual guidelines from a particular journal. Again, I have used World Journal of Surgery as an example. Just go to the selected journal's website and look for author guideline or instruction to author. So in this case, if you just go to the author guidelines, if you click it, it will take you to the image on the right side where the World Journal of Surgery instruction for authors are listed down. Okay, so always read this first. Okay, read the instructions first before formatting your manuscript. It saves a lot of time and effort, and they will, when you go to the instruction, they will give a lot of things to follow as shown in this WJS website. After you have read the instruction to authors and before diving into formatting your paper, always, my advice will be, try to find a model paper. Try hard. There must be some research done almost similar to yours. Always try to find a model paper that may guide you, on the write-up, and then you can format it according to the journal that you would like to submit your paper to. Okay, the first thing in formatting is the title page. When you format the title page, you have to ensure that the title is concise, has all the information to attract the reviewer or reader, and always try to avoid abbreviation. So that's quite standard. And then the author details will follow as per our earlier discussion with regards to authorship, and also, yeah, if necessary, you can give all your acknowledgements in the title page. Okay, so the journal will always ask for a title page to start with. The next thing that you would normally have to do is the writing of the abstract. The abstract is often the first thing the reviewers and readers see, isn't it? When an article is there in a journal, the first thing is the abstract. So it should briefly state the background and objective, and you must answer why was this research conducted. Okay, that gives the background and objective, and then you should write the methodology used and describe the results of your study. But in an abstract, you only need to give the key findings. You don't have to elaborate all the results that you found. Just give the key findings and come up with a conclusion showing the impact or significance of the research. Okay, and within the abstract page, it also must have important keywords. So keywords are very important. Why? Because if anyone searches for those keywords, your article will get a hit and will get visibility and therefore increases the chances of getting cited. So you must choose proper keywords that will be relatable to your article. And remember, the abstract must always stand on its own, meaning when the reviewer reads it, they should understand the research and be stimulated enough to know more. Therefore, they will actually go and read the actual full manuscript and forward it to the reviewers. If not, if the abstract is not strong, then they will just reject the paper at that point. So we really don't want that, isn't it? In this slide, I have just taken the opportunity to share the abstract of our ESWL paper with regards to anxiety that we wrote, and some of the keywords, that we have used. Usually, the keywords are restricted to 5 in number, and it must be relatable to your study. Like I said just now, when anybody try to look for articles on ESWL, for example, and your article will actually, this article will get a hit, and therefore somebody will read it and somebody may decide to cite it. So that is the importance of keywords. Now we move on to the structuring of the main body of your article. So the IMRAD structure is commonly used in scientific writing. What is IMRAD? Introduction, method, result, and discussion. Okay, so in the introduction, usually you try to confine to 3 paragraphs. So in the three paragraphs, you define the problem and the research objective, and you try to quickly get to the point. Okay, try your best to get to the point. Don't elaborate so much. Keep it to 3 paragraphs and get to the point quickly, and then move on to the method section where you describe how the research was conducted, and you must ensure the methods that you use are reproducible. That means in another setup, the methods are valid. Okay, and in the result section, we actually present the findings without interpretation. You don't have to interpret your results. Just present what was your results of the test you did, or the demographic finding, things like that. Just state your results without interpretation. So the last part of the IMRAT criteria for structuring the main body is discussion. So in discussion, you actually interpret the results in this section, where you can link your findings to previous research from literature, and then you write up your conclusion. So just a suggestion, to help you write, you can divide your discussion section into 6 C's if needed. Okay, as shown in this slide. The first C is to clarify your findings, and then you can compare with existing. So don't try not to write your results anymore in, not try, you shouldn't be writing your results in discussion. You just clarify them, and then you compare with the existing literature. Either your results actually agrees with the existing literature, or existing literature, or it's contradicting the existing literature. And then you explain that, you consider explaining the findings, why yours is different or yours is similar to the literature, and and elaborate on the contribution of your study to the body of knowledge that we have, and always give the cons of the study. That means limitations. Okay, can show limitations, and beyond that, you just conclude your study with a nice, simple conclusion. So that are the 6 C's that I would like to suggest to all of you who are, sometimes struggling to write your discussion points. The next thing that you will always have in your article are figures and tables, isn't it? So, as we all know, they are very important to enhance your presentation of details of your research. And if you have a table or a figure, it helps visualize your data, isn't it? So make sure they are all in high definition and clear, And tables should be self-explanatory. Okay, they must have proper titles, legends to indicate clarity, and so that they can stand alone if needed. And always follow the journal's specific formatting requirements for tables, okay, and figures. They will have a specific requirement, and you must also watch out, in the instruction to authors. They will usually state the word count equivalents for a table or a figure. For example, a table can be equivalent to 250 words. So this must be taken into consideration when calculating the total word count. Now, have a look at this slide. If you look at this slide carefully, you will see a figure on the left and a table on the right. You will notice the figure number and the description are all at the bottom. But for the table on the right, you see the number of the table number, and the title of the table is above the table, and the legend is actually below. So these are some of the examples on how formatting is done, based on the instructions given by the journal. So you need to follow all this format in order to get the reviewer to actually have minimum corrections to do if they actually are going to accept your paper. The final part of your article will usually be the reference. Okay, so reference management also quite important. So all your references in your paper must be formatted according to the journal's specific guidelines. Okay, they have different types of bibliography management like Vancouver, APA, Harvard style and all that. So best is to use reference management tools like EndNote. Okay, this can help ensure that all your reference are consistent with one style. Okay, so it depends on what style that the journal requires. So you must be accurate with citations, and also this accuracy will avoid rejection, due to poor referencing. And always remember, the literature cited in your reference should be within 5 years, in at least 50% of your journals, that the literature that you are citing, they must be newer ones, all your journals that you are referring to mustn't be too old. Most of the journals prefer newer references. So keep in mind at least 50% of your articles that you are referencing must be new ones. Okay. So what are the common mistakes to avoid when formatting? So usually the most common ones are the referencing style. So avoid inconsistent referencing style. If you use a referencing tool, that should be overcome easily. Your figures and tables, always avoid improper formatting, for them. Just follow the instructions given by the journal. And sometimes, word limits for abstract manuscript must be adhered to. So again, most important thing to do is always double check the author guideline. Okay, and then you can avoid all these pitfalls. As I mentioned earlier, I have kept the section on predatory journals at the end of my presentation. So I'll be moving on to the final part of my presentation for today. So what is a predatory journal? Let's go into the definition, which is quite long, but I have broken down into some bullet points that can help to explain better. So it is a deceptive publication that prioritizes profit over scholarship. That means it doesn't matter what is the intellectual content of the article, it just goes for profit. Okay, and they often lack proper peer review, transparency, and ethical practices. And the review process, the editorial process, are all lacking in legitimacy, and they can promise you rapid publication actually. Okay, usually, under normal circumstances, publication, to get your paper reviewed, correction, and to publish, it takes some time. But this one, very quickly you can get your paper published. And why this is flourishing? Because they exploit the desire and the pressure for academicians to publish. Okay, so with that, you might get information about existence of predatory journals because you are actually looking for them due to the pressure of publishing. As an academician, you must be able to pick up the red flags, okay, when on how to identify possible predatory journals, which show all some characteristic, which I have listed here. The warning signs can be aggressive solicitation. That means you can get frequent and unsolicited emails requesting for you to submit manuscripts. So when you get this kind of emails, you must always be careful and make sure that they are not a predatory journal. And you may get a journal writing to you to submit article, and then they might list out some renowned figures, as their board members. And if you call those, let's say if you know them and you call them, they say, no, I have not given my name to be in the editorial board at all. So you must be always be looking out for this kind of attitude of the journal. And there will be lack of peer review process. Okay, they because they promise a fast publication, so there is no proper process. If you send in an article within 2 days, you might get a response that your publication is accepted. So that is not how normally journal works. Okay, and they charge a very high publication fee, and they won't tell you in the beginning. So you just get it accepted, and then once accepted, they will tell you a very high cost that you might end up paying, and because already your paper is stuck there, you can't even retract it, so you have to end up losing that paper if you identify them as predatory. And of course, you can't get proper, genuine impact factors, or their indexing. Databases are usually uh, quite dodgy, and you can't find them in any of the databases. So even if you put their journal in Google Scholar, or their articles from their archive into Google Scholar, you won't get it. Uh, you won't get it identified as one of the articles that are on genuine circulation. Okay, so that is how you identify the predatory journals. So if you have some warning signs, that you identified that the article that you're submitting to a journal may be a predatory type, then you might want to identify it, isn't it? So there are ways to identify. Some say the journal or the publisher will be listed in Cabell's predatory report. These are all databases. Okay, and most of the time, the most common one that we all use is the Directory of Open Access Journals. If you go to the DOAJ, you can actually check whether those journals are listed in the DOAJ. If they are not listed, then they are not authentic journals to submit your publication. Okay, and they are also not listed in Ulrichs, which is an authoritative source on publisher information. Okay, this includes open access titles as well, and they are all not widely available in a major database like what I mentioned about. Even Google Scholar, you can't find their articles actually. In order to identify these predatory journals, you may also want to, go to this website, which is a very reputable website, Think, Check, and Submit, where you can actually follow their checklist, and this website will give you a report on whether the journal that you are intending to submit is predatory or not. So they have some criteria to follow, some check boxes, and then the report will be generated. So you can even consider using this to identify. Okay. So with this slide now, I have reached my final point to make on a predatory journal, and I'm at the end of my presentation, where, what are the consequences if you get your article published in a predatory journal, as an academician? What is the consequences? So, these articles are all disregarded, by reputable institution and researchers. So our institution won't accept this publication as one of their as one in the list of your publication for promotion purposes, or KPI purposes, so it won't be taken into consideration. And then they, as a journal, will retain the rights to your work, and you can't even retract it. They won't let you retract it. And then, if it was a good article that you have written with possible potential, you can't even publish in other journals anymore. They'll be stuck. Okay, so it will definitely harm your professional standing. Okay, it will affect your future opportunities for grant application, and these articles are not indexed in any databases, so it may not be visible to the scientific community, and it definitely reduces any impact of your work. So I, truly advise you not to, get your papers sent to any of the predatory journals due to pressure, or the need to publish in order to move forward in your career, because that will definitely not help. So make sure, if you are selecting a journal, make sure you run through the Elsevier, maybe, or even the JCR sites, to check what is their indexing and their reputation before submitting your article to that particular journal. So with that, this is the end of my presentation. With that last word, I thank you for your attention and your time, for listening to this talk for today. Thank you once again.